If you're worried about Sam Laporta, don't be.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Matt Dery with you. It's a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day on a Tuesday, September 17th and a Wednesday, September 18th. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Shout out to our everydayers. Those of you that watch every day or listen every day, if you're subscribing on Locked On Lions YouTube, I appreciate that. Some everydayers hit me up on LinkedIn recently. I got to give you some shout outs. Devin Perez, thank you. Jack Miles, Andrew Aliswag, Jeremy Huggins, Joseph Borsier. I hope I pronounced all those names right. You know who you are, but we appreciate all of you that check us out daily here on Locked On Lions. The program today brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You can follow us on Twitter at Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions, the Matt Dery Facebook fan page as well. Dave Pasch, longtime radio voice of the Arizona Cardinals, the best radio duo in the entire NFL is Dave Pasch and Ron Wolfley. They are awesome to listen to. If you have SiriusXM, check out Cardinal games with Dave and Ron. They're the best, in my opinion. Dave's going to join me momentarily here on the program. We'll get some thoughts on his days in Detroit, what he thinks of the Lions. He is very close with Chris Spielman, and also talk about the Cardinals as well. That Sunday's opponent as Detroit heads to Arizona to face the Cardinals for a 4:25 start on Fox this Sunday. 1-1 Arizona, 1-1 Detroit. All right, before we hit up Dave and talk a little bit with Mr. Pasch, two things. Number one, the kicker list is back. Woo-hoo-hoo! Yeah, baby. I got to cross a name off. Greg Joseph, who was on the kicker list because he was on the practice squad, is now a member of the New York Football Giants. Graham Gano is hurt. Today, the Giants have taken him away. Greg Joseph was on the Lions practice squad, of course, behind Jake Bates. He has been signed to the active roster of the Giants. They'll play the Browns this coming Sunday, but no longer will Greg Joseph be on the kicker list, at least for now. That's number one. Number two, a lot of talk about Sam Laporta right now, and it's understandable. This was a Pro Bowl tight end a year ago as a rookie, made such an impact, broke all the rookie tight end receiving records. And through 2 games, Sam Laporta has 6 catches for 58 yards. I mean, 6 for 58 would be a bad one game for Laporta a year ago. So the question is, what's going on with number 87? Why isn't he getting open? Why isn't Jared Goff looking for him? Blah, blah, blah. And, I was doing a little research today, and I realized that Sam Laporta isn't the only tight end, big-time tight end, that is off to a slow start. It's a pandemic. It's an epidemic around the league. Travis Kelce, through 2 games in Kansas City, considered the best tight end in the game, right? Forget the Taylor Swift stuff. He's just a great player. 4 catches, 39 yards, no touchdowns through the first 2 games of the Chiefs season. 4 at 39. That's it. You're talking about Patrick Mahomes' security blanket, number 1 receiver. Mahomes has never had a great wideout. I know he had Tyreek Hill and some others, but Kelce's always been his guy. What about Mark Andrews of the Ravens? 6 catches, 65 yards through the first 2 weeks, also no touchdowns. All right. When you're talking about big targets, Lamar Jackson's main guy, Mark Andrews is a stud. Ravens are 0-2, and Andrews is nowhere to be found the first 2 weeks. So Kelce, Laporta, Andrews, 3 of the top, 5 tight ends in the league. You want to throw George Kittle in there, who I believe has 11 catches this year so far, which is good. Only 1 touchdown. And again, I'm using this as an example. Sam Laporta will wake up. Right? There will be a time when we talk about Sam Laporta being a huge part of this offense. I just know it. And I know this. It's early in the year. There are fans that are panicking. But as Dave Pasch will tell you coming up momentarily, Lions coming off a loss need a win. And if they go back to doing what Arizona did last week, which is run the ball 40 times, I'm not saying the Lions have to run it 40, But to get back to being who they are with their identity, I think the Lions are going to be in good shape this weekend. I do not think this is going to be an easy game. Again, it's kind of what I said last week. And Arizona with Kyler Murray is very, very dangerous. By the way, I just realized this. Arizona is like the home of the former Lions. Matt Prater, speaking of the kicker list, that kicker list is a long list of guys that have been kickers under Brad Holmes over the last 4 years because they let Matt Prater walk. He's a Cardinal. Julian Okwara is on the Cardinals. Yes. Good old J.O. In Arizona. He's on the team. Remember Evan Brown, the former Lion guard / center? He's a starting left guard for the Cardinals. He is out in Arizona. And also former Lion legend Starling Thomas, cornerback. This is like Detroit West when you talk about the Lions and the Cardinals, a bunch of Cardinals that used to play here in Detroit. This is going to be a fun game. I was watching some of these highlights the other day of Kyler Murray against the Rams this past Sunday. My gosh, the plays he made, the scrambling, the throws, that dude is absolutely for real. So this is not going to be an easy test for that Lions defense. But again, like we said yesterday, Kelvin Beachum starting at right tackle as a backup. Aiden Hutchinson will be facing his third straight backup right tackle. And you know he's gonna want to feast. The big issue is the first 2 weeks when you played Stafford and when you played Baker Mayfield, you weren't exactly facing guys fleet of foot. Kyler Murray can get away and scramble with the best of them. His footwork is unbelievable. So there's going to have to be a spy or somebody. Aaron Glenn's going to be assigning on that defense to Kyler Murray to make sure that he's not running roughshod over this Lions defensive outfit coming up on Sunday. That is for sure. And oh, by the way, for those of you that watch the Monday Night Football game, we're going to get to Dave Pasch in a second. What a gag job by the Eagles. We're all upset with Dan Campbell over how he handled the end of the half the other night against the Bucs. What about last night with Nick Sirianni throwing the ball on 3rd and goal or 3rd and 3 and Saquon Barkley dropping it? Falcons out of timeouts. You run the ball there and you run the clock down. And you might, even if you run the ball and get 2 yards, do a tush push and end the game. That was unbelievable. And then the Falcons just got the ball after the field goal and went right down the field and scored a touchdown to win it with ease. Terrible, terrible coaching by Nick Sirianni last night. All right, coming up next, Dave Pasch, ESPN, and also the play-by-play voice of the Arizona Cardinals on the radio. 23 years with the Cardinals. We'll talk to Dave coming up next. But first, Locked On Lions is sponsored by Gametime, the best place to get tickets for anything. Concerts, shows, sporting events is Gametime. They are the best. Gametime has a new feature as well. It's called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff, show you only incredible deals on great seats that you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. All the great deals are at Gametime. It's easy to use and operate on your phone, the Gametime app. And what I love too about the all-in pricing is if you get the all-in pricing, you just toggle this feature. It shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You got to do it. View from your seat is fantastic. Get that panoramic view so you know exactly where you're sitting. You look right, you look left, and it gives you a great feel on what tickets you are buying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is Gametime. And Locked On Lions today brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, right? That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It is so easy to do. You put that purple hiring frame around your avatar picture, and people know that you're hiring. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, it might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, as promised, folks, the longtime voice of the Arizona Cardinals, over 20 years now doing ESPN college football and college hoops, the NBA. My main man, my former classmate at Syracuse, the legendary Dave Pasch, is on the program today. David, what's up, brother?
Diesel. Do people call you Diesel, or am I still the only one?
It's winding down. The guy that was on the Dave Pasch podcast recently, Iron Eagle does, a few others, but just laying low here in Detroit, my man. You know, all is good. You look good.
I don't. Don't lie to me. You look good.
Do.
See, now that you got rid of the beard, so you have hair and it's dark. I have no hair. You knew me when I had a full head of hair. Yes. Now I got to fool them. I got to have the beard going so there's some distraction. People don't just look at my bald head.
You know, I put your games on Saturdays on ESPN, and they keep putting younger analysts with you. Like when you were with Chris Spielman, you were the young guy. Right now they just keep putting on these young guys with you. I'm like, oh, come on, don't do that to Dave.
It's funny. Yeah, I thought back. The first time I acknowledged it, really the first time it happened was 2016. Because prior to that, I was with either Chris or I was with Brian Greasy, about the same age. He might be a couple years younger. Chris, Bob Greasy, Urban Meyer, Andre Ware, going back. Like, these are all people older than me. And in 2016, they paired me with Greg McElroy. And Greg at the time was 28.
Yeah.
So I felt really old. And now Greg is working with Sean, and they're a tremendous team together. But yeah, Dusty is I've got him by a decade. So he's another young guy. But he's excellent as well and well on his way.
You were here in Detroit. See, a lot of fans don't remember that you were here in Detroit. I'm here because you helped bring me here. So you folks can blame Dave. But like mid-90s, like 2-3 years, what was the time frame when you were here?
2 years, brother. 95 to 97.
That's right.
When I got to Detroit, we don't think when we get these jobs we're going to leave. Like, I thought I'm going to be in Detroit forever. And I was there for 2 years. And then I went to Chicago and thought, we're going to be here forever.
Yeah.
We were there 2 years. And then I went back to Syracuse and thought, man, I'm going to be here forever. I was there 3 years. And now I have been in Arizona forever. It's been 23 years.
Wow.
Which, again, just shows how old we're getting.
Let's do some background on Dave when he was in Detroit. He lived at the Somerset Apartments in Troy. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Is the mall still there, or is that
Somerset Mall is still alive and well? Yes. Oakland Mall to an extent, but not like Somerset's still there. Yeah.
I think the mall had just been erected when we moved in, if I'm not mistaken. In 95,
I think you're right. Yeah.
Was about the time that it just was getting there. I know my wife worked at one of the department stores there. She worked at the radio station for a little bit, then worked at the gym as a personal trainer, but also spent a little time at one of the department stores there.
And don't worry, Anita's Kitchen's still there.
Oh, the best. Oh, I gotta get back. I mean, it's been probably 25 years. I need to get back.
Yeah.
Anita's Kitchen. That place is awesome.
I love it. Do you have a memory? It's funny, you're doing Cards and Lions, obviously, and we're going to talk about it, but do you have like a Lions memory? Because when you were there, those Wayne teams weren't terrible, but now what's going on here, you wouldn't even believe it.
My best memory is a Spielman memory. Obviously, well before I worked with him, he was playing for the Lions. And I remember, we're at the time I'm 22, just happy to be covering the Lions. And I can't remember who it was, but there was the scrum around Spiels, and they were playing the Packers that week. And somebody asked him, does Brett Favre have a linebacker mentality? And he asked that, and he answered the question. And I think a reporter had come late, and he was like way behind me. He was a TV reporter. I'm like, it's a TV guy talking to me. He goes, hey, can you ask Spielman if Brett Favre has a linebacker mentality? Like, he just answered that, but sure. I figure I'll do a solid to the TV guy. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah.
Who the TV. So I asked Chris, and I prefaced it with, I know you've already been asked that. And he cut me off. Why are you asking me again?
Oh, geez.
And it scared me to death. But he knows that I could take him in a heartbeat, especially now. He can barely get around. So he's well aware that, if things came to blows, especially now, that I'd have him pinned pretty quickly. Like Luke Fickell once pinned Chris Spielman. I don't know if you've heard that story.
No.
Yeah,
What?
Luke Fickell was playing for Ohio State. Chris was an NFL player. He went back to Ohio State for practice or something, and Chris said, "Hey, who's the toughest guy on the team?" And somebody said, "Fickell, the nose tackle. He was a standout wrestler in high school." And so Chris went over to Luke and said something like, "Hey, I hear you're a great wrestler. Well, let's see how tough you are."
Oh,
And
no.
so he challenged Fickell to wrestling, and Fickell had him pinned and so quickly and so hard that I guess Spielman had turf burn on his face. And Spielman came home to his wife, the late great Stephanie Spielman, and she said, like, "You're a mess."
Yeah, don't ever do that again.
But I do want to say, just I know we're joking here about Chris, but I'm so happy for him, Matt. You know how I feel about him as a close friend, and also just I have so much respect for how he carries himself and the man that he is. The Lions would not be where they are without him. And I know he doesn't want the credit, so he's going to have to let people like us give him credit for the job he's done in helping build not just what's going on the field, but also just uniting the Lions organization. He deserves a ton of credit for that.
We're talking to Dave Pasch, voice of the Cardinals, of course, ESPN. Let me ask you one more thing about that. He like you just said, he wants no credit. He does very rarely any interviews. When people are talking about the Lions, they say Sheila Hamp, Rod Wood, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell. His name never gets mentioned. And it's like, remember, he was the first hire that started this whole thing. He helped hire both of these guys that now have built up this, I'm not going to say powerhouse, but the Lions feel like they're really good. Chris should get some credit, but he wants none. It's amazing.
Yeah, I had him on my podcast 2 years ago when we played in Detroit, and we talked about his role. And typical Chris, he's very deferential and roots for the success of others. And he's never going to get into details with anybody about, really what he's doing behind the scenes, because he feels that that's a team thing. And I think that's a mentality that, a lot of great organizations have. It's very much about what goes on inside this building stays inside this building. But I just know with the way he handles himself and builds relationships and treats people, it's not an accident that the Lions are having success. And clearly, Dan Campbell, obviously, and Brad, they've got to have, they deserve the lion's share of the credit. Sorry for the pun, but
yeah,
I agree with you. It's unfortunate that I do think I thought I remember some of the broadcasts nationally during the playoffs showing Chris and giving him some props for what he's done. But you're right. He's never going to seek it. He's never going to ask for it. In fact, he's just going to deflect, because that's who he is. He's always been that way.
Looking at the Cardinals, I see a team trying to build just like the Lions. The GM, Monty, seems really sharp. The head coach, Jonathan Gannon, is an up-and-comer. I liked how you guys played last year, even though you only won 4 games. Is there a little model that the Cardinals are trying to swipe from Detroit a little bit?
Matt, I'm not sure it's that. I mean, I do know Monty, being a member of the Patriots organization for as long as he was, I think there are some Belichick type. There's a style there that's very similar to how Bill Belichick did things. And I would say there's some similarities to the Lions as well. I will say the similarities with wanting to be physical, that's something I think the Lions have become a blueprint for a lot of teams on, like, hey, this has become a quarterback league. It's become a passing league, but it's still football. It's still about physicality. The Lions have been that. The Cardinals kind of got away from that under the previous regime, but it's back. I mean, all you got to do is watch last week. And it's interesting. The teams the last year plus with the most 200 rushing yard games, the Cardinals with 5, the Lions with 3. Again, I don't think that's by accident. There's an identity about pounding the football that the Lions are about and the Cardinals are about.
I tuned into a little bit on Sirius the other day. Your broadcast partner, Ron Wolfley, who is just the absolute greatest. There's some guy on Twitter that does an impersonation of him, but when they started pounding the rock, and I love it, David. They're running the football over 40 times. Lions threw it 55 times this past week. And I've been saying, and everybody's been saying, time to get back to pounding the rock again. That must have been fun for the offensive line this past Sunday.
It was. And look, Kyler was outstanding and improvised and made just some incredible off-schedule plays, but he also did the little things. He did not make mistakes. He played very sound, fundamental football. The ball was going where it's supposed to go, which tells you something, that he's reading it, he's seeing it. And, their offensive line is a little banged up. They have a new right tackle, Kelvin Beachum, who started last game because of the injury to Jonah Williams against Buffalo. And he's a veteran. He's been around. But with Hutchinson coming to town, it's different. It's different. The Rams have two good edge rushers, but this is a different deal. And so I will be curious to see how the Lions attack the Cardinals, knowing that they can run the ball and can pound it, but Kyler's good enough to beat you from the pocket, but also, of course, scrambling and creating.
I put up on the screen Kyler effect. It just seems like he's back. Like you said, the improvisation last week, that's a concern for the Lions. I mean, man, they've gotten home with Hutchinson, but this is a different animal, man. Kyler's he's dynamic. I know you were saying to Ian Eagle on your podcast, right? You've got to be on your toes because you're not sure what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, it's so much fun calling his games because you got a chance you're going to see something that you may never see again. I mean, there were a couple plays last week. I just don't know how many people in the history of the game can make that. And we've seen snapshots, Maddie, of that over the years. It's, can he be consistent? Can he do that from game to game, being solid and reading defenses and beating you from the pocket? His accuracy and ball placement are good enough for him to do that for sure. But I think we'll know whether he's good enough to lead the Cardinals to a championship the more consistent he gets. Not that he's going to have a quarterback rating that's perfect every week, of course not. But can he be sound and know exactly what he's seeing and reading and put the ball where it needs to be?
What scares you about the Lions in this matchup? What do you think? Where do you think Detroit's going to go to try to expose some things with Arizona?
Well, coming off a loss, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Because I do think the Lions, I thought the Lions probably would be the team to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Seeing Jared Goff here with the Rams for a long time, I think that is an area still of minor concern. I think he's proven he's a very good quarterback. The question is Jared Goff good enough to win you a Super Bowl? He's got to a Super Bowl. Can he win it when he's going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes? I don't know that. And the interception last week was a costly one that he threw in the red zone. But I would think the Lions get back to trying to pound the football. It makes things easier on him to be balanced. It makes it easier on any quarterback to be balanced, but I would think especially him. And I think they'll have some things defensively to throw at Kyler. I would imagine that they will be creative. I think they'll look at what the Bills did maybe in the second half because they had a little bit more success getting after Kyler than they did in the first half, or than certainly the Rams did this past week.
Take us through your week. Where are you going Saturday? And how's that been? And you've done this for so long, but I always think of you like, wait, Cardinals, Bills, week 1. How's Dave going to get to the game Sunday at 1 Eastern? Was it a close call? Have you had into those recently?
Well, that week was close. So we had Arkansas, Oklahoma State at noon Eastern. It was an ABC game, and it went to double overtime. The game went 4 hours, and I had a flight out of Tulsa through Atlanta to Buffalo. And there's one flight out of Tulsa that late. So and Tulsa is like an hour 15 from the stadium. There's traffic. I made it. Made the connection, made the flight as well, made both flights, no problem. Landed at midnight or whatever it was. This week, Florida, Mississippi State, and Starkville. It's a noon Eastern game, ESPN, so a little bit easier. It's still not easy to get out of there, but I can get home Saturday night as long as everything goes smoothly. But that's probably the most difficult part of my week, and most stressful part is getting from A to B. The games are great. The games are fun. And the prep's fun. It's the travel.
Do you ever need can we get you a police escort to the airport some of those parking lots, forget it, right? I mean, you got to get out of there pretty quickly, don't you?
Yeah, it depends. Every school's different. Sometimes they help you get to where you need to go, or sometimes parking by the truck doesn't help. Sometimes you need to park a little bit further away. They're pretty good. ESPN and the schools are pretty good about trying to figure out the best way to get out of there.
Final thing on this weekend. You've been with how many years now for you on the Cardinals, by the way?
23. Isn't that crazy?
My gosh.
Yeah.
It's still fun for you, right? Still, you do the TV on Saturday, then you go back to the radio Sunday. I know you and Ron just do such a great job, and you were obviously there when the Cards made the Super Bowl, and with the Kurt Warner teams. But you still having as much fun as you did when you started?
I am, Deez. It's fun when you get to be a part of the team. I love ESPN, love the national broadcast, of course, but I get to root. I get to be a fan, and you get to feel part of an organization. So I do enjoy it as much as I did when I started. It's not fun when things aren't going well. Last year was not fun, even though you could kind of see it trending in the right direction. You could see the ascension happening with the hire of Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon, especially when Kyler Murray came back from injury the second half of the season. You could see it in training camp, and then it's affirmed last weekend. Buffalo was good for half, but not good enough. This past week, it was dominant. And that shows you that all the stuff they've been doing, changing the culture, laying this foundation, trusting in Kyler, that it paid off. Now you got to do it again, and you got to do it again against a great team. But it's fun to be a part of that and to be able to call it. And there's nothing like doing playoff games in the NFL. And the last one was 3 years ago at the Rams, and it did not go well. And I'm hopeful that Kyler gets another chance, because I still think he's got an opportunity to be an elite quarterback, and would love to see him get the opportunity to do it in the playoffs when it matters the most.
Great to see you, brother. Thanks for doing this, Dave, and have a great call on Sunday, my friend.
You too, bud. Anytime.
There he is, Dave Pasch, with us, the voice of the Arizona Cardinals. Always love talking to him. And we did a 16, 17-minute interview, and never even mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr., who had a breakout game with a couple of touchdowns this past Sunday. And Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. We've been talking about FanDuel for a long, long time. They're America's #1 sports book. Well, they got something a little bit different for you that ends this week. So let's do it. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. FanDuel is the best. My gosh. Tigers and Royals. You want to just ride your money on money line on the Tigers? They've been playing so well. Shout out to Chris Fetter. That pitching coach is unbelievable. You can do so at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com right now. Download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, wrapping up Locked On Lions for this, a Tuesday edition. Thanks to Dave Pasch for joining us. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals host, will join us on Thursday for the crossover. We'll get the injury report to you tomorrow, as well as we get ready for what should be a very entertaining game on Sunday. I was always worried about this game over the summer when we went through the schedule, because I think the Cardinals are a much improved team, much improved. And I think they're very well coached. I think the Lions, though, can run the football against them. And I also think that this Kelvin Beachum, Jonah Williams situation, their big right tackle being out, is a big advantage for the Lions. We'll have to wait and see. But we are back again tomorrow with another episode of Locked On Lions, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen, and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts.